Hi guys, in this video I'll talk about using a law of cosine in a couple examples. So this is one of the concept that is actually requires a lot of algebra and some like solving equation. So you have to go through each of these steps on your own, even though you know you got the concept, so you have to practice, I guess. So which is why whenever I have a question, please pause the video and go ahead and try and see if you can finalize the question on your end and see if that's the same result as mine. Okay. So yeah, this is the first question, but just a reminder, whenever you have a triangle, the law of cosine is another I guess relation that we can use. But in order for us to use law of cosine, we do need at least two sides, like of the given sides, and one angle in between. Or if you are looking for the angle, you need three sides. So how do I determine that? Like law of cosine is just briefly something like this. Let's say we are looking for one side, and the square of that equals and square of the sum of the other two sides, which is b and c if I call, and minus twice of the product of those other two sides, which is like B and C, and times cosine of the angle A. So it looks a bit complicated, like whatever you start with, like that's the side A, and the angle measure will be the angle that is opposite to that side, okay? And if I want to write the equation for the other like variable, which I can, but it doesn't really matter. So it's going to be the same idea. Let's say I'm going to say b squared. Let's say I'm going to find b alone. So that should be b squared equals a squared plus c squared minus 2 times a times c times cosine of the b. Okay, so again, the side b and then angle b is going to be the same. So all others are kind of similar manner. And the last one is the c squared equals a squared plus b squared minus 2 times a times b. Again, a squared, b squared, a and b, they are going to be the same thing, times cosine of angle measure of AC. Okay, so that is the law of cosine. So just keep it in mind as a reminder. And now we are looking for the angle measure of A. So we are looking for the angle. So if I ask for the angle, so like A, so as you see the first one, so side A and angle A has to be the one that is actually itself. So which means I should start with this side that is opposite the angle that we are facing. So that is 13. So 13 squared equals, the other two sides is 6 and 10. So I'm going to go with 6 squared and 10 squared minus 2 times 6 times 10 times cosine measure of angle A. So after writing this equation, the rest is not too simple either, which is why I highly recommend you to pause right here and try a few steps to see if you can finalize the question. So 13 squared is 169, and then 6 squared is 36, and 10 squared is 100. If you add them, so you got 136. But there is a minus right here, and then there is a lot of multiplication, which is why we cannot really subtract like 2 from this because there's a multiplication. So 2 times 6 is 12, 12 times 10 is 120, so that should be minus 120. But there is a multiply. This is multiplied by cosine A as well. So that is times cosine A. So some people are confused at this step because, you know, cosine A is a variable, like just a number. Just think about this is your x, like if this is 136 minus 120x, and then your goal is to get the x alone, then you have to cancel everything else. So what we can do at this point, we may subtract 136 from both sides, right? So 136 from both sides. And if I do them, so that should be 3, 9 minus 6, and then 6 minus 3 is also 3. So that is just 33 equals negative 120 times cosine A. Okay, so we have something, but our goal was to get angle A. So there is a number in front of the cosine A as a multiply, like the product of two things. If you want to get cosine A alone, so you have to divide both sides by this coefficient, which is minus 120. So let's do that. And then these will cancel. So then this is going to be equal to cosine A equals, you may simplify if you want to, which is like divisible by 3, but I can leave it as it is as well. But let me divide by 3 just to make it a bit less complicated. So that should be 11 over 40, but that is negative, okay? So now it's time for us to remember the inverse function. So since we are looking for the angle measure, so if you are looking for the angle measure, we are going to use the inverse of the any function that we are given, in this case cosine. So how we find the inverse? We just take the inverse of the cosine and then we just use -1, something like power, but it's not actually power, it's just inverse notation. So cosine inverse, inverse of cosine. And then when you do so, this number right here and the angle A are going to swap. So meaning that you are going to have cosine inverse, inverse of the cosine 11 over -1, -40. And when you do this, this is going to be equal to angle measure of A. And that is basically what we have to do. The rest, just plugging this into plugging in this calculator. So let's go ahead and do that just to see how that looks like. Now we have, you see this sine, cosine, inverse cosine. So we are going to use the inverse of the cosine. And as you see, it says A cos, which means that's arc cosine. Another way to write that is actually arc cosine, so which can be written as ARC cosine of 11 over -40. And then this is going to be the same as A, okay? But this is just two different notation. Inverse cosine can be written like this or that one. But the calculator just skipped the first two letters, so that should be okay. So 11 over -40, right? And if I plug this, I should be getting my angle measure. So it looks like 105, right? Point something. So make sure your calculator is actually set to degrees. So in this case, I guess that is correct. So that looks my final answer. So if I need to get a nearest degree, so nearest degree will be 106 in this case. Okay. So I hope that is clear. Okay, so this is the second question. Now we are looking for the side BC. So which is, I'm gonna name this is X. And if you remember just the previous problem, like we are gonna use the law of cosine because we have two sides and the angle in between those two sides are given, which is good enough to use the law of cosine. And the square of one side, let's say this is X in our case, okay, equals the square of the other two sides, so sum of the squares, which is 6 squared and 13 squared, minus 2 times twice of those two sides. Okay, so product of those two. So 6 and 13 times cosine A, which is 91 degrees. Okay, so just manipulating this equation. As I mentioned, go ahead and try this on your own before you see the solution, just to see if you really can complete the rest. So that will be 36, and 13 squared is 169. And you just can multiply this with your calculator, I guess. That should be okay. That should be 2 times cosine and stuff like that. So that's 12 times 13 times cosine 91. Okay, so I'm gonna type these in the calculator and see what that gives us. So 36, okay, and then plus 169. And if you don't feel comfortable with typing these in calculator, so maybe you can just do it step by step, and that might be good as well. So minus 12 times 13, so 12 times 13 times cosine 91. So I think I did correct. So now I got this number. So make sure this is not your answer. This is the x squared. So the x squared equals 207.72, something like that. Okay. And since we are looking for the x, so you can take the square root of both sides. So let's actually go ahead and do that with our calculator. And then square root of this number, so 207.7225. I think this is going to be good enough for rounding. And that is 14.41. So if I want to make it in nearest, whatever that needs to be asked, okay, nearest 10th. So you can just say this is 14.4 and we will be done. So before I move on, I just want to give you one quick check. So, you have to ask yourself, is this number that I got now, is that kind of expected, like based on the given figure? So we have 6, 13, and x, and then this is 91, which is a bit larger than 90. If this is a 90, that means BC is already the largest side, and this has to be larger than the other two sides, which is larger, so which is expected. So then you can go ahead and submit that, okay? So that was the second question. Okay, so this is the third one. So as you seen the first two questions, we're gonna still use the law of cosine. And in this problem, we have three sides are given and then angle is being asked. So please pause the video and then and just move and try and see if you can actually do it on your own. So let's go ahead and try again. Since we are looking for the angle A, so which is this one, I will start with the opposite side square, which will be alone. So 10 square equals 11 square plus 13 square minus 2 times 11 times 13 times cosine A. So you cannot really just plug this into calculator immediately because the unknown is right here. So you can just simplify a bit. So this is 100 and this is 121, 169 minus, you can just multiply these two maybe to make it less number of products. So that's 22 times 13 times cosine A. So again, these three numbers, 22, 13, and cosine A, all three are multiplied together. So which is why if you want to do some manipulation, you need to keep this in mind. So you cannot split them unless you divide. But there's other numbers that is added. So we just need to maybe get rid of these first. What I'm going to do, I'm going to add the positive version of this product. Okay, so maybe I can subtract 100 from both sides. So that should give me 21 and 0 when you subtract 100 from both sides. And then if I add the positive version of this product, so you will get 22 times 13 times cosine A equals 21 plus 169. Again, if you didn't get this part, so pause a minute and then look at it, or you can just multiply these two numbers, you get another number times cosine A, and then you can just go from there. But I think this is still fine. And the cosine A equals 21 and 69 is add up to 90, right? Because this is 70 plus 20 is 90. So that's 90. And then you got 100. So that should be 190. And then, but there was two numbers that must multiply by cosine A. So you have to divide by that number. So which is why cosine A will be 22 times 13 divide that, 190 by that product, and then this is going to be cosine A. And if you remember, you can again try taking these numbers and put into a calculator. But before you move on, you have to make sure that you are looking for the angle. And we just seen in the first problem, when we are looking for the angle, we just use the inverse of any function that we are given. So inverse of the cosine should be something like this, and then that will be 190 over 22 times 13 equals the angle measured of A. So if you like to simplify these and then plug into calculator after, so it's also okay. But I think which is either one is gonna be fine, okay? So let's see what we have. And then if you just plug this into calculator, which I'm gonna do this on the side, and then you can always try this on your own as well. And let's try that. So 190 over 22 times 13. So if I do this, I do get 48.36. Nearest degree has to be 48, and we are done. Okay, the last question is asking the side AC. So we are going to use log cosine again. So the AC square is equal to square of the other two sides, which is 8 squared and 12 squared, minus 2 times 8 times 12 times cosine of the angle in between those two sides. Or since we are like taking AC alone, which is this side, and then the angle opposite to AC is angle B, so that should be on cosine of the angle that we are taking cosine for, okay? So 123. And now there's just manipulation. You can just plug into calculator at this step if you feel okay, or you can just simplify those first and then plug after. So let's go ahead and do this right now. So 8 squared is 64. And then I have plus 12 squared is 144. And then actually minus 2 times 8 times 12 times cosine 123. So let's close the parentheses. And when I do this, as you see, I do have a 300 something, but that looks like too big, right? So the reason why it's too big, because this is not AC, this is AC squared. So keep that in mind. So the AC squared is equal to 312.570 and 6 maybe. Since we are gonna find the nearest 10 for AC, so we don't really need that many digit after decimal. So now we are gonna take the square root of both sides. So let's actually, yeah, square root of 312.57. So I think that will be 18. Nearest, actually no, nearest 10 is 17.7. So that looks like my final answer. Okay, I hope that makes sense. We did 4 questions, and I really need you to like take a look at those on your own and see if you can do it. If you didn't do on your first try, and see if you can really do the same thing after you see the solution. Okay, I'll see you in the next video.